Henry was embarrassed. Duck's trick had worked, and everyone on Sodor thought that the green engine was a laughingstock. The 6 tenders that Duck found for Henry were rusty, old, and filled with boiler sludge, and had been seen better days. When Henry arrived at the works, he spoke severely to Duck. "Nice stroke, Duck. Now I've embarrassed myself thanks to your prank." "Well, Henry, there are 2 ways of doing things. The Great Western Way, or the wrong way." "Yes, don't we know it. Say, where did you find these tenders?" "Oh, it's a long story, Henry. But from what I was told, they, What, Duck? Out with it. Let me guess there. Soon, Henry's driver opened the regulation, and he had to go. Sir Topham Hatt arrived later that day and had an idea. "These tenders will work wonders as potential spares. Men, get these tenders restored at once." So the workmen began to work, restoring the tenders to their former glory. When finished, they looked as good as new, and not too soon had they been restored. James had to have his tender mended. James didn't mind that, as the tender, though different, suited him. He was showing it off to Eddie Engine as he passed by. The other engines didn't take notice. But what they didn't know, this would be the start of something very strange and horrific to come. The next day, Sir Topham Hatt came to see the engines. "I need an engine to help bring goods supplies to Vickerstown." "I'll do it, sir." The engines were surprised, so was Sir Topham Hatt. Very well, James. Carry on." Not long after that, Donald and Douglas had to get their tenders looked at, as they were due for maintenance. The tenders that were available had to do, but the twins didn't mind that. The next day it happened. Donald refused to come out of his shed. "I'm an express engine. I don't pull smelly trucks." "Move, damn it! You're a goods engine." Duck was very terrified and was worried what would happen next. Douglas, meanwhile, was terrified out of his wit. "Oi, what was that sound?" "Douglas, it's only me. Is everything all right? And why are you acting this way? Did something... Oh, it's nothing, Duck. I must have heard something go off." And Douglas puffed away, leaving a very worried Duck. Days later, Emily, Gordon, and Henry all had to get their tenders repaired. The 3 remaining tenders did work well, but to Gordon he boasted about it. "Imagine myself, me with my original tender, and this one would easily put Scotsmen to shame." But Gordon would eat his own words. The next day, that evening, Henry was due to pull the flying kipper. His driver and fireman tried to awake Henry, but to no avail. "Come on, Henry, we have to take the kipper." "What's wrong, Henry, old boy?" 5 more minutes. Then I'll be on my way." Henry's driver was concerned. "I think it's those blasted tenders." "Impossible! The only one who would know about them would be Duck." Morning came, the express was ready, but Gordon was sad. His crew didn't understand. "Oh, the indignity! It's a tragedy. All my brothers gone to the winds, and I am the only one still here. It's a shame. It's a shame." "Bullshit, Scotsman is still around. Now come on, the express is late as is." As for Emily, well, let's just say she was being a little too flamboyant for her own good.
"Say there, Edward, you're so beautiful. I'd love for us to spend time together. It will be so amazing."
No thank you, Emily. Besides, aren't you married to Henry?" At last Sir Topham had arrived that evening. He heard what had happened. "I don't know what the bloody hell happened, but these tenders I specifically had made for you to be spares, not some paparazzi gag. Now, good night." Then Sir Topham Hatt walked away, leaving the engines not carrying on characteristically. That evening, however, everything changed. Duck stayed at the sheds to be certain everything would be all right until... "Get out of me! Go away!" James was frightened and felt he was being possessed. Donald and Douglas felt the same thing happen to them as well. "You don't belong here. Get back to where you came from." Then the other 3 engines felt the same thing. "Ugh, get the hell out of my smoke box. I'm too young to die."
"Whoever you are, leave my soul now."
Then, out of nowhere, a flash of lightning struck down. Duck was horrified. In place of his friends were 6 engines he had never seen before, all of which matched the tenders. After a few moments, the lightning stopped. Gordon, Henry, James, Emily, Donald, and Douglas all were returned to their places and were fast asleep. Duck trundled quietly to the goods yard sheds. There he slept uncomfortably, thinking about what had happened. The next morning, Duck returned to the main sheds to check on his friends. They were all distraught, in pain, and exhausted. The tenders were uncoupled just to be certain, and Oliver arrived with their original tenders. Sir Tom had arrived and was deeply concerned. "Duck, there was lightning in the forecast. Whatever happened? And do the tenders have anything to do with this?" "Yes, sir. I am sorry, sir." Sir Topham Hatt was surprised. These tenders belonged to 6 engines, who all had very serious accidents a long time ago. Their tenders were spared, but the engines were not. I found these tenders on a goods train destined for the other railway. I lightened the load on the poor diesel. He told me about the tenders being allegedly haunted. But I saw it all, sir. They were well possessed by the spirits of the deceased engines. I take full responsibility, sir. Thank you for being honest, Doc, and I know exactly what needs to be done, sir. They have to be scrapped. Those tenders, it's the only way to have those engines have full closure. You're right, Duck. I'll make certain that the tenders are sent to the scrapyard. Meantime, I'll have the other engines do the work for our engines that are indisposed until they fully recover. And so it was arranged. A few days later, all of the tenders were arranged and Duck was coupled up to them. All of the engines that used the 6 tenders got their original tenders back and were recovering from their ordeal. Will they be all right? Duck said to Thomas. To be honest, they'll need all the time to recover as much as possible. Sir Topham had told us to do their work, so it will be, nice for a few days. That's what friends are for. Duck's guard blew his whistle, and the Great Western engine made his way to the scrapyard. When he arrived, Sir Topham Hatt met with Duck. I am proud of you for owning up to your mistake, Duck. Now we will do what must be done. Airy and Birch shunted the tenders into the smelting shed, and soon workmen began cutting the tenders down one by one until they became none. Duck felt a huge relief off his smoke box, knowing what he did was the right thing. The engines who had the 6 tenders all recovered nicely and went back to their usual duties. However, one night at the scrapyards, the ghostly presence of 6 ghostly engines appeared on Sodor. Soon, after a few moments, they all faded into the afterlife, finally reuniting with their 6 lovely tenders.